Peace, what's going on, everybody? So today I just wanted to make a video in honor of Wednesday, Mercury Day, Archangel Raphael Day. I love you, Latrice. We're going to be talking about Mercury through the houses. So if you have Mercury through any of these houses, just know that when I'm talking about houses, I'm talking about areas of life. So the areas of life, these are basically the basic things that we do on a day-to-day basis in our life. So a quick rundown: the first house, which is our personal space and is the things that is very personal to us, our personality, because it represents the ascendant, which is how you're personally seen and how other people see you. Then you got the second house, which is where you plant seeds, your values, the values that you plant seeds in, which when you grow up later in life, these become your moral systems. The ninth house. The third house, which is the opposite of the ninth house, which is your siblings, which is how you communicate, which is the way you think, and also your local surroundings, the local school you went to, and the local grocery store that you go to every single day. Everything dealing with locality. Fourth house, home. You know what I'm saying? Parents, domestic issues, domestic resolutions, family, emotions, privacy. Fifth house, creativity, how you express yourself, the things that you like to be creative in, and also how you express yourself. Sixth house, work, the way that you work, how you work, the things that you work on, and the things that you like to keep focused and consistent and on a daily routine. Seventh house, the way you relate, how you relate, the relationships that you attract, whether this is romantic relationships, business relationships, or even friend relationships. Just someone that you can have a one-on-one dynamic with. Eighth house, other people's resources, the behind-the-scenes realm, backstabbing energy, going into the depths of things, sexual energy, the occult, mysticism, astrology in a lot of ways too. Ninth house, education, travel, how you travel, the temperament of how you learn and the way that you express your knowledge. 10th house, your status, the career that you pick in life, the way people see you on a very broad scale, not on like how people see you on a personal level, the first house, but how like people even form confirmation biases about even you and everything based upon your 10th house and the temperament. 11th house, the people you are associated with. This would be like how the third house is locality. The 11th house is going downtown, going in the public, going to meet associates, going to the club, going to business meetings, going to rallies, going to parties. I think I said that already. Going to events, being around people that are not necessarily your friends or people that you have a one-on-one connection with, but just people that are associated with what you're doing, whether this be a festival, a business meeting, or you're just going for a walk in the park and there's other people that like to walk in the park too and shit like that kind of thing. These are just associations and shit. 12th house, dreams, creativity, the mystic realm, astral projection. You could say substance abuse in a lot of different ways too, because the 12th house deals with seclusion. So any kind of energy signature that is dealing with seclusion is going to fall into the 12th house. Okay, so now let's get into Mercury. Mercury in the first house. So Mercury is your thinking, the way that you communicate, how you communicate, and how you take in other people's thoughts and the ideas and the way you formulate ideas and everything. So if you have it in the first house, the way you formulate ideas is it's a lot of times on a personal level. It's the things that you're personally into. These are a lot of the things that you like to discuss with other people, and these are the things that are on your mind a lot. Now the thing is when with planets in a house, you have to understand that the opposite house plays a role in it too, because it's the opposite polarity. It is the yin of the yang or the yin of the yang, depending on what energy it is. So in this case, Aries, fire, Libra, air, Venus being the ruler of the seventh house, more of a receiving, and Mars being the ruler of the first house, being external. Now, with Mercury, the first house, you have to learn how to express yourself in a personal way and be able to, because this is pretty much an energy of being able to express yourself because it's your personality. But you have to not be so brash when it comes to the things that you're into, because the things that you might be into may not be relatable, seventh house, to the people that you're around. So this doesn't mean you have to necessarily always have to fake the funk and communicate with things that have absolutely nothing to do with your personality, but you have to figure out ways to be relatable and then be able to inch in what you're personally into for there to be a positive balance of the first and the seventh house when you have Mercury in the first house. Not too much of the first house is being expressed. You're able to understand the seventh house, and you're able to combine these two to create balance. If you have Mercury in the second house, with Mercury in the second house, you like to communicate and conversate and think when it comes to the things that you plant seeds in. Your value systems, what you have, because Taurus rules the second house actually rules Taurus, but Taurus is I have. So that aspect related to the second house relates itself too. And with Venus ruling the second house, this is a very things that you have. These are things that you take pleasure in. You take pleasure in appreciation also, and you value, because the second house is values, and the Venus planet deals with values also. So all that combined together, this is something that you appreciate. So the things that you communicate about, you always communicate your value system. You always communicate what you have. You might even communicate possibly how much money you have, which is not necessarily smart, which is that thing that you have to balance with the eighth house, which opposes the second house. You've got to learn how to not communicate so much of your business, eighth house, your personal in-depth shit, because people could take that energy and use it to manipulate you. The things that you have said to these people in regards to your values and your resources, these people could take this shit behind closed doors, aka the eighth house, and they could use this shit against you, regardless of how trustworthy you think these people were or are and shit like that. Okay, let's see if you have Mercury in the third house. It's home here in the third house. So you just like to communicate in general. Mutable air is the ruler of the third house. It's not the ruler of the third house, it's the temperament of the third house. Mutable air. So when you're communicating, it's like you can communicate about anything with anybody. But this is that thing that you have to learn with the opposite house, the ninth house, which is higher learning and higher education. You have to understand that these conversations cannot always just be shallow. You have to learn how to go to the opposite house, the ninth house, and be able to learn how to express these things in a way to where you're able to actually have it make sense. And then you're also able to create like a space to where people can build and communicate when it comes to actually higher learning, higher knowledge, higher thoughts to like build communities, higher knowledge to build new technology and new innovations and shit like that. And even creative endeavors too and shit. Not just shallow conversations and gossip when it comes to you just purely being in your Mercury in the third house. Now with Mercury in the fourth house, the things that you like to communicate with others and the things that are not communicatively, constantly on your mind and in your thought process is domestic issues, privacy, things dealing with the moon and the tides, emotions, cardinal water, pushing out vibes, pushing out moods. These are things that are always on your mind, whether you're trying to do this to others, whether you feel like people are constantly trying to throw their moods and their shit onto you. And really anybody that has Mercury in a water house kind of always somewhat feels like someone is, because it's Mercury, so it's thoughts. So a mood, they may feel like a mood's coming toward them, but depending on the house of the modality of the house will be how you direct it. In this case, it's cardinal water, so You may feel like people are trying to push a wave onto you, but now that you think that this person's doing this to you, and they may not actually be doing this, now you feel and think that you need to do that, and you need to learn that that doesn't make sense. Which is where you need to tap into the Mercury fourth house's opposite energy, the 10th house. Learn how to take this Saturnian energy and build stability and even boundaries when it comes to even the way you think about emotions and shit. You got to learn and you got to think that other people are not always trying to harm you emotionally or try to tamper with that private aspect of yourself. So you got to learn that too. And then you got to learn that the things that you have to think about have to also make sense, and they have to have structure too, and they can't just always be based upon pure emotion and everything, and purely just based upon your mood and how you feel. There's got to be a foundation to the things that you're thinking about. And then you got to think about how people might receive you too. If you continuously be moody and everything like that, people will not want to fuck with you. Now, when we get into Mercury being in Virgo, this is going to be the last part, and then I'm going to do a part 2 in a little bit. It's a perfect way to transition because now we've dealt with the first half of the zodiac, Aries, aka the first house, through Virgo, aka the sixth house, which is the first half of the zodiac, which is the first upper half of the body, which that first half deals with your own self and how you deal with yourself and the temperaments of yourself. Once we get to Libra, Scorpio, Sagittarius, Capricorn, Aquarius, and Pisces, now we're starting to deal with how you take your personal temperaments and how you relate it to the world, which is how these energies play out in their opposite ways, aka Aries is the opposite of Libra, but they're technically the same kind of energy. It all deals with relating and individuality, and you taking those two elements and combining it into one to where, yes, you can relate to people and you can relate your own individuality to people without it clashing and everything. And this is how you create the perfect blend of the two signs. So now let's conclude this with Mercury being in the sixth house. So if Mercury's in the sixth house, this is another house that it rules. Or it can also be said that it's exalted in a lot of ways too. So with that, Mercury in the sixth house, very analytical, very much got their shit together as far as the shit that they calculate in their mind. They know how to organize their thoughts without even having to write them down, without having to go back and be like, okay, let me go back to see what I wrote down to remember what I had scheduled. No, it's always on your mind. You're continuously thinking about this shit. Like a person who has Mercury in the 12th house, like myself, I have to write down shit because my mind is all over the place. And even though I know how to stay focused on a task, my mind is so much in water that it's easy for me to like go to a different place creatively and everything. But when you have Mercury in the sixth house, you're not in that world. You're in Mercury in the sixth house, which is always dealing with mutable earth, which the ability to adapt to the way that you analyze and practicalize with your thoughts, your Mercury. So it's constantly like moving around and shit like that. Your mind is moving around as far as the thing that you have on schedule and the things that you have on task. But at the same time, you have to tap into that Mercury in the sixth house energy and apply it to the 12th house too. AKA, when you take that energy, you have to work on a dream. You have to work on something that can be a creative expression too, not just dull scheduling just for the sake of like, oh, every day I brush my teeth every morning. Oh, every day I wake up and go to work. Oh, every day I pay this bill on this time. No, you got to take that and you got to work on something creative-wise and shit. You got to work on something creative-wise so that you can have that perfect blend of the 6th and the 12th house, which is organizing and working towards dreams, comfortability, being able to be in a state to where you don't have to work anymore. So that's that energy right there. So we'll pick this up on part 2, which will be in a little bit, but y'all take it easy. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all afternoon, noon, lunchtime, and I'll catch y'all later. All right? And hit me up at oneloveja36@gmail.com. All right? Peace out. BeTheAll since 1995, y'all.